Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to talk about the UV Map Modifier, how you can use it and why you might want to use it. UVW is a way of expressing the X, Y, Z coordinates that you would use in your normal modelling, but to avoid confusion they have been called UV and W when using mapping coordinates. All objects by default have mapping coordinates created when they are first generated. So that allows most materials to be applied to most objects in a simple way, and this would normally work. Let's look at what we have here on the screen. I'll just increase the size of that. Okay, now I've already got some material prepared. And here's a map of the Earth, which if I apply to the sphere by dragging and dropping, that looks pretty good. And I've also got material here to go on this box. Again, looks pretty good with the DHL logo on it. So, straight onto those objects using the default map coordinates, and it works. However, supposing your images were different for whatever reason, let's drag this Earth map here on. And lo and behold, it's upside down, and we drag this one onto the box. Lo and behold, it's mirrored, and the actual DHL is back to front. Well, we could fix this by going back into something like Photoshop, but there could be good reasons why we have these images or maps the way they are, and we don't always need to go into somewhere like Photoshop to fix them. This is where we can use a UVW map. So let's pick the planet Earth, sphere 001 in this case, click on the modifier list, type in U, and that brings up the U's down here, and we want UVW Map. Now, you can see now that in fact the image on the planet is very strange, and that's because the UV Map Modifier has various options in how it applies materials. It always defaults to planar, hence the shape we have there. Cylindrical in this case would be no better. Box, very peculiar. Of course it's obvious we want spherical. And lo and behold, we're back to where we were with the map upside down. Now, as I explained, UV and W is really just X, Y and Z, and we want to flip this map on the y-axis, i.e. the v-axis. So if I click flip, lo and behold, we now have the image the right way around for the planet. Now, that was very simple, but we can do other things. If we go up to the UV Map Modifier, click on the plus sign, click on the gizmo, and click on the letter E in the keyboard to give us rotate, we can now do things with that image. And there we have it. I've now rotated the image on the object. I've not rotated the object to give it the tilt as it would represent the Earth. But do remember, when you're working with the image, you must click the gizmo under the UVW Map Modifier. If you don't, you will end up just moving the object, which won't necessarily be what you want. So, now let's look at the box. Modifier list again, let's click U from the keyboard, come down and pick UVW Map. And instantly you can see how it has applied the image here. It is only correct on the surface, and on the sides it is misrepresented. Again, that's caused by using planar. Previously on the Earth we used spherical. Let's just see what happens if we do that in this case. Very strange. Cylindrical, yeah, again, not something you'd want. Obviously we want box. Click on box, and we're back to where we started. It looks fine except for the fact it is mirrored. So This time we're going to flip it on the x-axis, or the u-axis as we know it here. Just click flip, and there we are. We now have the box looking correct with the images representing DHL properly projected onto that object. Again, we can play with the material if we so wish. Remember, click on the plus sign, select the gizmo, and now you can actually start to move things around. Now, you probably don't want to do this, but you can see the flexibility that does exist. Let's move down here. Just click reset. Finally, let's look at this tube here. So, click on the tube, and I apply a bark material to it. It looks not too bad, but the bark is far too rough, the scale's too high to make it look realistic. So again, a UV Map Modifier, and as always, it's in this case applied with the planar, and it just looks dreadful. We know this time we want cylindrical, so we're back to where we started, this rough looking material. To improve this, I'm going to replicate the bark material on the x-axis, or the u-axis because of the map modifier, 3 times. So come down here, type in 3, let's do a render of that, and you can see it actually starting to look pretty good as a material. You'll also notice at the top here there is an issue. It clearly is incorrect, but that's something we'll pick up in a later tutorial. Okay, so that was some simple use of UVW map, and you can see how it's very flexible in changing how an image is applied to a material. I'm now going to move on to the inside of a room and apply some tiles to the floor and wallpaper, and again using the flexibility of this tool, how we can manipulate very simple images into something that looks pretty realistic. See you in a moment.